What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Dripping Creativity Podcast. I am your host, Chris Corvan, and today we are joined by the incredibly talented Gill Bennet, born in Queensland, Australia. And
you've said my name wrong.
I did. Okay, let's go back. Go ahead, correct it for me.
I'm so sorry.
No worries. This is why it's here. How do we pronounce it?
It's Gill.
Gill.
Think of the great Gillian Anderson.
Wow. You know what? I never would have put that together in my head. My head did not see it that way at all.
Yeah, no. So Gill is short for Gillian. We can talk about this on the podcast, but Gill is short for Gillian, and I've always gone by Gill because it is an English name.
Yeah. No,
so in the UK, I've never had a problem with people mispronouncing my name, but in Australia, growing up, it was an absolute nightmare, and I was always grateful for Gillian Anderson because I could go, Gillian Anderson from the X-Files, and they go, yeah. I go, that's my name. And
it never clued in. It's just seeing it written every time is that's just how my head has said it.
Yeah.
Well, there we go. Now we know. Jill, I'm gonna screw that up. Oh no. Anyways, versatile storyteller, art, like you just do so much. You do so much. We're here to talk about your latest projects, including a travel blog, which is amazing. I'm very excited to talk about that. Approach to mental health and fearless exploration of creativity. So, Jill, welcome to the show, and how are you doing today?
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. I wasn't sure when I saw you going, I'm doing next season. I was like, am I allowed to come on this? Because again, I do so many things. Like I don't do just one thing, and I find that very hard, particularly when you're trying to talk about stuff on social media. People must just go, oh, well, I'm here for the art, or I'm here for the writing, and I'm like, but I do all these things.
As somebody that not only with my own stuff in much the same way, but with the brand itself. For the podcast, it's literally every genre. Like I cover every industry, so it's like there is no one thing. Multi-talented people is, especially this season, I'm having a lot of multi-talented on, so it's the perfect time for you to come on here. It's great.
I'm very excited. I have I have many mottos, but my main one, which to me sums up like my creativity and everything, is that you're only limited by your own imagination. And my imagination is limitless. Like, so anything I think of, it will be expressed in whether it's a story or a stop motion video, which I've done, or painting or whatever. So, whatever the idea I have, I'll find whatever creative outlet there is that I think is the best way to present that idea.
It's a fantastic way to go about doing it. I'm a huge fan of that type of thing. Before we kind of get into everything, because there is a lot to cover here, let's kind of bring it right back to the beginning. Where did kind of the creative spark start and come from?
So I've always been creative as a kid. Like I painted as a kid. I remember writing stories. I remember I used to live in my head because I really struggled as a kid. I was very depressed, particularly as a teenager, and very anxious. Although I didn't know that those were words at the time. Like to me, if we talked about mental health, the thing that I always thought of as a kid was Batman's Arkham Asylum. That was the mental, like that's what I knew. Like you would think about schizophrenia, like nothing like with depression or anxiety or anything that we talk about now. So I used to think a lot of stories in my head. I used to escape, and I loved film and TV. That was where I went. Like I would watch anything and just find it fascinating and be like, oh my god, like they just come up with these stories. Like even Rocky Horror Picture Show, I'd be like, wow, that's the limitless imagination where they've gone there, and not even, and I was really young at the time when I saw it, so I hadn't quite registered that actually was a whole community like sort of thing, and that's where they've been inspired from. And but I really struggled to write. My writing sucked. Just kind of like my mother used to sit with me and I would be trying to write a story for school project or whatever, and she'd go, okay, tell me what you're trying to say, and I would articulate it really well, and then she'd go, okay, that is not what I'm reading. Like that is how bad my writing was. But I always did lighting and sound at school and that, so I was always creative. But I thought I wanted to be a phys ed teacher. That was what I always thought at school, and obviously I think some of that's the social norm where you're kind of expected to go to uni. So I went to uni. Summarizing uni, I studied 3 degrees and didn't finish any of them. I had a great time. Though. I had an absolute blast. But and the first one was phys ed. And then after a year, I thought, nah, this isn't. Like mainly because I'd be doing the same thing every day, dealing with the same issues in kids every day. Like I love teaching, I love education, I'm all for it, but I realized that wasn't for me. I'm someone who loves to do something new and be challenged. And then I tried like multimedia. I then went and did jazz piano, because yes, I do play various instruments to varying degrees of success. And then obviously the financial crisis hit, and then I kind of just packed my life up and moved to London. And the whole point was to get a job in tech, because the thing I realized in Australia was that if you wanted a job, say in lighting, there could be 50 of you and only 10 jobs going. And I realized everybody was going to the UK or overseas, getting that experience and coming back. Now I haven't gone back yet, but the goal was to go to the UK, and I fell into tech. I became a project manager for 15 or 10 years, I think it was. I worked on launching world service sites. I worked for the BBC. I've had that career's been unexpected. But when lockdown happened, I wasn't in a great place. So when lockdown happened, and I was living on my own, it kind of reintroduced me. I was reacquainted with my creative side, as it were, because I really hadn't had that in a while. And I realized that was a huge part missing for me, and that's not the entire reason why I wasn't feeling great, but I need that creative outlet. I'm sure I'm sure people listening will know, is that if you're creative, you need a creative outlet. And all of a sudden, what started it was I was on a call like this, and behind me was a blank wall like this. And every day I'd be on calls for work, and I'd sit there looking at it going, if I'm bored of seeing that boring wall, imagine all the people on the call. And so I painted a picture that then led to another painting, and then one night I was listening to music, because music soothes the soul, and I got obsessed with this song. And then all of a sudden I went, I could see a stop motion video. Then I just poured all this money into buying Lego and making sets, and that was an 8-month project in lockdown. And and kind of as we were coming out of lockdown, I was like, no, this is where I want to be heading. I want to be, for me to be happy in my job or doing something I love, I've got to be creative. And that's kind of how we are where we are now, where I'm trying to make that, or trying being the operative word, but trying to make that happen.
It's being a creative and wanting to do it full time is the most rewarding and detrimental, destroying thing you could ever do.
It's like it's being a hypocrite with itself, where you're like, I'm so happy and excited, but oh my God, you're crushing my soul very, very slowly.
I was talking to somebody yesterday where it's literally I am killing myself to do the thing that I love to do, and it sucks, and I'm not gonna stop, and I probably should. It's even like now I haven't actually contracted as a project manager in a while, and I'm like, I really should probably go and get another contract so I can keep the funds, but my brain is just like, no, I'm kind of done with that. Let's just keep pushing forward with this and see what happens. And particularly because in lockdown, and I would say actually, as much as I fell into the career I didn't enjoy, or I enjoyed it, to be fair, there were parts I enjoyed of it. I definitely enjoyed helping people, and to be honest, a lot of my leadership stuff and exploring unconscious bias and mental health and how we all learn, the language we use, all of that came from that. And actually the thing with lockdown made me realize actually is how much my writing had improved over the last 15, 20 years sort of thing, because I was in a corporate job where I was forced, I used to say that all my product owners were my editors, because I would write it in Gill language, I would give it to them, and then they would be like, Gill, that's very direct and brutal and harsh, and they would teach me how to write it the right way. And it improved my grammar, improved my spelling, all of that sort of stuff. And so when I started writing my articles for things and books, I've self-published 2 books now, all of those things during lockdown kind of made me go, oh, actually, I've really grown in those things, and that's not a bad thing, and actually gave me the confidence to kind of now, do the travel blog and all of that sort of stuff. All right. Well, we got the complete rundown there. I think we actually covered about 5 of my questions, so we're doing good. Doing good.
Good.
Kind of before we start getting into the specifics here, I am curious, when you're looking at a potential new creative item and you're like, how do you choose what medium it should go with? You got this brand new sparkly idea and you're looking at it, like, do you see the full vision in your head when you look at it? Or do you just kind of start developing it and then it takes you where it needs to go?
I think it depends on what it is. I would say in general, I'm quite a visual person. So for example, the stop motion video I made with Lego, I could see shot by shot very clearly on certain things and how I wanted that to look. And I went straight away, that is a stop motion video that I could see, that I could shoot and direct and, make all that stuff. And don't get me wrong, there is a whole process which I did write up that's on my website, because I try to I went down the route of paper mache for a bit and realized, oh, that's not going to work out. And, so that sort of process of figuring out what the best thing to, like, the detail of it is the process. Others, I visualize a lot. Like, I have some movie script ideas in my head, and that could have been anything else, like a book or whatever, but actually I could see visually the shot by shot in my head of how I want that to look. But other things, like my leading from the middle stuff, like if I had that idea 4 years at least before I wrote about it, but I chose not to because I thought I didn't have enough life experience yet. I thought if I write about it now, I felt there was more to learn, and actually I'm glad I did, because what was just one article turned into 2 articles that turned into me speaking at an event that turned into a course that's now turned into a book idea, and it wouldn't have done that if I'd done it sooner. And actually that's, which we'll get onto, I'm sure, with the travel blog. Like, again, I've been trying to write a travel blog for 15 years, but I didn't want to do something that was similar. And again, that leading from the middle is now going to feed into that. And so there's things I want to do, but I'll know instinctively what's the right approach, or if I kind of go, I don't want it to be that, it will kind of just sit subconsciously in my brain. I tell my subconscious, you go away and think about that and let me know what you come up with. And then it comes back to me and I go, oh yep, that's what we'll do, and then we'll do that.
You know what, I again, as a multi industry person, I totally get it. And yeah, visualizing that one thing, you're like, no, it has to be told this way, it has to be, there's no other way. And I would say, because I want to make an impact with everything I'm doing, like, I want to talk about things and educate and teach, because again, that's what I wanted to be. I wanted to be a teacher, but I've realized that the normal teaching way didn't work for me. So everything has to have an impact or a meaning. So even like there's an idea that I have, and actually I've realized that even though it's a shoot of video of some kind, it's actually not going to be speaking. So to me, it really comes down to what is the message I'm trying to get across. And then that kind of does definitely, as I'm sure you find, it influences then the output of, or the outcome of what you're then showing. Definitely. The one thing I want to get into first off is the art, because it's beautiful art. I absolutely love it. Pretty sure Sarah and I have fought over this a couple times.
Yes.
Which, I mean, come on. Art is the one thing that I loved to do when I was younger, but the problem was, because I couldn't finish it immediately and get it exactly like I wanted it right away, I stopped doing it. Like, that's so when it comes to the artistic side, like specifically for the paintings and all of that, how do you manage to keep yourself focused when there are so many other things you want to do at the same time?
So that's where soft acrylic is great, because like I've done some oils paintings now, and I love oil, because the thing I love about oil is if you do make a mistake, you can fix it, because it takes so long to dry. But then I have no patience, because it takes so long to dry, and you've got to do a layer and then you've got to come back to it. But soft acrylic, particularly with pour paintings, so the satin rings one, that you constantly, every time you see it, go, I want. That's a pour painting. And again, because it's abstract, the thing I love about abstract is that you can get away with it not being quite how you imagined. There's definitely some I've done, and I've tried to do waves in that. It's not how it's turned out. But I've then used it in like the stop motion video. I was like, oh, I've managed to repurpose this in some way. But the initial plan with it was me practicing, and it just bombing really badly. Like I don't have a degree or anything, and what I would love to get better at is drawing. Because I take beautiful photography when I travel, and I would love to recreate those. But again, like for me, painting is like finding the calm amongst the noise, because I am a very anxious, like my anxiety is just crippling most days. And it, like, me and my brain just are at war every day. And so for me, painting is just a way to shut up the noise. Even if I have a movie on when I'm doing it, it's just a thing I can focus on, and I can do it for a couple of hours. And I seem to hold the attention span for it, so that's good. But to me, that, like, all my art that I create, like, I really just want to create pieces that, like, for me, that when you look at it, it just switches off something in your brain where you can kind of disappear. And even the things I've written, because I discovered that as artists, you write little blurbs about why you painted it. Now, I was like, oh my God, how am I going to do this? But what I've done is I've tried to write a little story that kind of ignites your imagination, where you can then be taken off somewhere to that piece. So, like, one of the things I did because of Sarah, because she's bought two of them, which was not... one was because she was really into dark colors in that, and I realized I hadn't done any dark, like those moody colors. And you know, the green forest one, I just imagined, because she talks about her chaotic throwing fairies, woodlands, witches, all, you know. And so I wrote basically about how you're walking through a forest heading to your witch's cabin, because she was talking about how she wanted it for a writing room. So I, like, you know, she inspired me to kind of create something, knowing she was buying it, that would fit. And, you know, I hope that every time she looks at it in her writing room, she's taken to that space for herself. So yeah, each piece is like, the art is me trying to deal with or process all that anxiety and depression at times, and kind of express that, and hopefully it literally is trying to calm amongst them, bring some calm amongst all the chaos that is going on. You know, and that's the thing, each piece does speak to people differently. Like, again, you have your specific ones that you always love, and there's others that people find, like, there's some there that I think, oh, I didn't think that was great, but I've just put it out there because I just thought, let's see. And there's people, and I go, look, oh, I love it, and I see this and that, and I go, oh, cool, that's what I want, is that it's just a piece of art you can look at and be, you know, you can go, and just have your moment.
Definitely. And I mean, if doing the art is something that you find as a stable pillar that kind of helps recenter yourself as you're doing it, that's an amazing outlet to have, especially with the creative stuff, because, you know, we all know the times you want to be creative, but you're so stressed out or anxious or something like that, you can't find a good way to get it out. So, you know, art, things like that, beautiful, love it so much. Let's kind of round our way to the middle here. We're going to talk a little bit more about, you're very open about mental health and its influence on your work. How does the creative process kind of help you navigate those complex emotions? And do you see your storytelling as a form of healing?
Yes and no. I see sometimes a form of storytelling either me trying to understand something, and it might not be even something I'm feeling. It could be I've been talking to someone, because I do coach people. So, you know, there's people who I've coached throughout my career where they've been struggling with something, whether that's in their job or something a bit more personal. And, you know, they'll say stuff that I go, oh, that's really interesting. Like I'm a deep thinker. Like, I will disappear in my brain pull a thread on a question, and like you and I could talk about something today, and I could message you in 3 days time and go, so I've thought about what you were saying, and actually, you know, and I will go off in some thing. But again, like, if you look at the art as like kind of the calming side of it, I kind of need that, because the other stuff I do, that is where I do put the pressure on myself of like, oh, I see it visually so clearly, and it's not quite doing what I want, and I get frustrated, and it's not turning out how I thought it would be, or that's not where the story I thought was going to go. And so to me, the art is the freeing side of it, which then balances out the other creative stuff where I do feel strongly on certain ideas, or, you know, I want to try and get across a message. So particularly with my age group. Like one of the things I've thought a lot about in recent months, because I've been trying to talk to people about how I'm feeling or things that are going on, and I'm not quite getting the responses, or like I tell they don't know how to respond. And I've realized I think my age group, because we didn't talk about it so much as kids as we do now, we don't quite have the tool set to be able to respond appropriately. Even though the best intentions are there, you just kind of go, what do I do with this piece of information? I know there's a thing I should say, and we haven't been quite trained or talked about it enough in a way to respond. So like, you know, and then so like again, my brain's then going down, oh, how is there a way that I could tell a story? And I have an idea. I have an actual movie idea where I go, that's an interesting concept. I could figure out if I could sit down and write it, where I could represent that and kind of show the rights and the wrongs ways in telling that story. But of course, I haven't started yet because one, I do too many things. I am someone who does too many things at once. That's partly because my brain and I need to shut up. And I'll do anything. Yeah. Like literally, if I go to bed, the first thing that happens is my inner therapist will turn around and goes, right, so let's talk about all the things that you didn't want to talk about today. And I'm going, oh, will you just shut up and we'll go off and do something else. So, and my mother tells me I do too many things at once as well. So, but yeah, you know, it's just stuff like that where I just think, is there a way I can help people? You know, like even my leading from the middle course, like I've done mental health courses, like because I was a mental health first aider and all that. And the thing that always got me is that they'll go like, okay, I want you to sit and think about a time when this happened or when you were feeling this way. And if you're comfortable enough, talk about it in the group. And that I've seen people struggle with that because they're not great at looking inward. I've seen people struggle because they don't trust the people they're with. So again, I think there's a better way we can address those things or tell those stories or help people realize within themselves a safer way to do it. So like my leading from the middle course I created, I wrote a mystery. So not only did I get to be creative, but also I found a really safe way that we can go through stuff, a fun way, where you're not really thinking about it, but at the end when it lands, you go, oh, I've realized about this myself, but we're not talking about you. We're just talking about identifying the things that you need to think about, you know, and hopefully that then when they go away, they think about that more within themselves, but it's a safer way to do it. So for me, that's like one of the big drivers at the moment, particularly of the stuff that I do, is I want to find ways to tell stories that just help people, but also do it in a gentler, calming, less evasive way, if that's the right way to put it.
It's a perfectly fine way to put it. And I mean, like, even kind of going back there to what you're talking about at the beginning of that, where it's, you know, you're trying to reach out to talk about mental health with people, and there's that disconnection that happens, especially in the age group. I think a lot of it has to do with not having the proper tools, but the other half of it is a lot of us, especially in the creative side, we don't feel worthy enough to make a comment.
Oh yeah,
definitely. Like very much like I see that a lot where it's like I don't feel like I am able to comment on that because I don't know how to handle it myself, or you know, there's a lot of that that type of mentality that comes through.
Or you're the other half of it, which, and I do both of it, where you're great at giving advice, but you're not great at taking it yourself.
We have talked about that quite a lot this season, actually. But and then kind of moving into for yourself there, like even going, and I know people are probably tired of me talking about my single post horror stories there, but those started out as my emotional outlet, because I'm not one who just likes to, you know, emotion drop on threads or whatever. Like I try not to do that as best as I can.
I'm not great with sharing. I'm a very private person, so I really struggle with
definitely.
Like me posting the other day about that query letter thing, but I kind of went, no, I need to say this, so I made myself do it. But I just sat there going, could easily just sit here and wallow in self-pity and no one would know.
Well, it is those emotions that led me to creating the single post horror stories, because I needed a way to express how I was feeling in those moments without it kind of sounding like a, you know, I'm pitying myself, where it's, no, I got to do something with it. So that's how that all started.
It's a bit like I managed to, because it's like yours with your horror stories. I wrote a poem called Why. And I basically wrote about my anxiety. I was like, why? And literally started each sentence with, why do I feel this way? Why am I up at night? Why? And I sent it to my mum and she went, that is just so sad. But it was a great way to finally, I said to people, they like that some thought it was beautiful, but equally they just was like, you can hear the sadness and the frustration.
And like, to me, that right there shows how best to actually get other people to talk about it. Because even, you know, like with that type of poem, or even the emotions in my single post horror stories, there's a lot more, oh, I relate to this, I had this experience around this type of thing, oh, I know exactly what that character is feeling. Because it's easier to relate to a piece of work than it is to another person, because that's, you know, we don't like that type of thing because we're scared people.
Well, and also we're not people who like to have attention on ourselves. Like
That's
I'm really bad for shouting about myself.
Well,
because
I love attention. I just don't like talking about myself. I'm a Leo, man. I'm all about it. I just don't ask any personal questions.
I'm an Aries, so you'd think as an Aries, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of things in me as an Aries, but I'm quite an introverted person on a lot of things. So to me, I'm just like, here's my work. You just judge my work for my work. Why do I have to come and talk to you about it? That's the attitude.
And that's what we're here to do. Speaking of which, fantastic segue. Let's actually now talk about the travel blog. Give me the rundown. Give me the elevator pitch. Tell me all about this.
So it's called, I've probably renamed it slightly since I submitted to come on this podcast. So it's called the Reflective Travel Adventures. So I've been traveling for 15 plus years now, and I've always wanted to do a travel blog. I've always wanted to share out what I've been doing, and like I love photography, and I think my photography as part of the writing kind of helps tell that story. But every time I've tried to do it, it's just, I go, it'd just be the same as everyone else, and I didn't want that. And I had many people recently, because I've just done 4 months over in Asia, going, you should really be writing about your travels. Sarah included, by the way. Sarah was another one who was on my case about it. And I sat down in Seoul and I started writing, and I realized that these could be more reflective, because there is definitely stories I've had where I've had culture shock, unconscious bias kick in, and I've done things that are probably not appropriate, but I didn't realize at the time because I didn't know. My mental health, there's definitely things that, recently I've been back to places and I've gone, I don't remember the last time I was here, and I've kind of thought about it and gone, actually, I think that's because at that time I mentally was not great, so I've just blanked that whole time. And so these stories are basically a reflection on my years of travel, of what I've seen, what I've experienced, the people I've met. I have funny stories, don't get me wrong. I have some really, like I've done Oktoberfest, like, so right there's I've got a lot of stories about Oktoberfest. So there'll be funny stories in all of it, but I do want to, again, it's that educating piece, particularly for people who haven't been able to travel, but also there's an age group now that are coming out who are ready to start traveling, and it would be, I would hope that they would find something really interesting and insightful in those reflections that maybe will help them not fall into the same traps or that sort of thing. So yeah, that's kind of the summary of, I don't know if I've explained that very well, but that's the summary of what the travel blogs will be. So every 2 weeks I'll release a new one, sharing a story. So the last one I posted was the very first tour I did when I left Australia. And, you know, I left Australia never being overseas before, never even owned passports. And I decided to move to the UK. And I went, oh, we've got a wedding in Boston. Let's just fly across the pond and stay there. So, you know, and so the next few are basically about the first tour I did through America and what that was like, because it wasn't what I had been told. And so my hope is, to kind of just share those stories so people can hear what actually I've been up to. And it's been really interesting as well, because for me, there's things that I don't remember, or things that I remember, but I don't remember the detail of that. And I think that's interesting. I think there's a whole topic we could talk about where you travel the world and yet you only remember certain things. So
back in grade 9, we did a school trip over to England, Amsterdam, and France for 14 days. I don't remember most of the trip.
Yeah.
Like out of that entire time, I remember one of the really old ass hotels we stayed in. I remember this novelty store in Amsterdam where we managed to buy beer at like 13 and we smuggled that into the hotel. I remember the Hard Rock Cafe, and I remember a bird shitting on my friend's head in London. That's it.
But the thing is though, right, if you hear those stories, I could see why you remember those bits. Like the beer thing, like how would you ever forget that story? You know what I mean? Like that is just such a thing that would ingrain. Whereas probably looking at historic sites, you were just like, eh.
Well, and then I go back through the photos, and it's like, oh, I remember being there. Like Vimy Ridge, we went to Vimy Ridge, which is big for Canadians, huge. It's in France. It's Canadian land in France, right? It's from the war. Like it was haunting to be there. Like to go back, like to actually remember that point. I remember it, and then I'm there and I can relive that experience. But just casual conversation, it doesn't, standing in front of the palace doesn't register a thing. We walked through Harrods, that was pretty cool. But like those, the overall trip, don't remember it at all. Yeah. So it's just, memories are weird. They're weird, fickle things. They are. So documenting these is amazing. I love that. I think that's a fantastic idea. It's spawning a couple seeds in my own head that we'll talk about later, of things we can do to kind of help promote you out. Are you in the cafe Discord channel?
I don't know. I don't think so. I'm in the Sarah's channel. I probably haven't seen somewhere where you messaged out, hey, come join this channel, because otherwise I probably would have.
It's one of those, it's kind of like getting on the podcast where I don't think of just sending out a mass invite. Yeah. It's kind of like I'm talking to somebody like right now, going, shit, are you in the you're not in the cafe? Shit, I'll send you the invite. Hold on. Because it's just, again, I'm a person that does entirely too much. So the little things get lost on me, and I hate it.
I don't know how you manage all that, because
poorly.
Like I'm about to start to send out newsletters for this. So the idea with my writing blog is there's a free version and there's a paid version, and I've only set it to £5 a month and £50 a year. So I've tried to keep it cheap, but you'll get two things in the paid version, which is the travel adventures. But I also want to do, which is another thing I'd like to talk about, and I'd love to see what you think of this, is it's called Come Write With Me. And the idea is that we will write a story, but I will write the story, but you will decide what happens. So in lockdown, a mate of mine, he was a very extroverted person, so lockdown wasn't very good for him. He was really struggling. So I said to him, let's write a story. And so I messaged him and said, here's 6 names. Which 3 are good and which 3 are bad? Is it like Mission Impossible, or is it like James Bond? Do we start here or do we start here? He made the choices and I started writing. And whenever I hit a point that a decision needed to be made, he would go, this person doesn't die, or this is how they die, or this is where they go. No. And for me, I loved it and equally found it frustrating, because where I thought I saw the story going was not where he told me to go. But equally it was great for me because it really got me creatively, those creative chops, like that imagination, exercise of not falling into the same traps that you do. So as part of if you subscribe, you will get to join in a Come Write With Me story where you get to vote. I have written guidelines, it's on the website, been very clear because I thought otherwise it's going to just turn into chaos. And yeah, it's like that's something I would love to do as well, because I actually really enjoyed that process. And I think we could come up with so many different stories, and you as a reader get to be excited to see where I take it. I'll even send little videos. So like I had to do a car chase through London, so I sent him a video of like where we would go. So you'd get that content as well, where I'll like explain the process of what I thought in that.
So love it. That's fantastic. It's actually a fairly common thing you can find in gaming industry, in gaming circles, is that type of storytelling. Another version of that is actually something I kind of did during lockdown, which is an alternate reality game, an ARG, which is basically, it's a fictional world that is our world. You treat everything like it's actually happening in real time. and you develop a story, and then the people involved, like mine was run on Twitter through multiple accounts and all of this stuff. There's about 100 some odd people at one point, and their decisions would impact where the story went. And I would do YouTube videos on it, sometimes multiple times a day. I ended up doing a total of like 192 videos on this for this entire storyline, and at certain points I would give them an option, and they would have to kind of pick and choose. Like one option was one of the main characters was getting chased by police, but there was also this really important document that needed to be saved. So they had to decide if they save the person or they save the document. And that choice right there made a decision on literally everything about the story. Because if they chose the document, it would have went into like this corporate espionage type thing. But they didn't. They chose saving the girl. And that turned this into like this really weird, almost like romantic fictional narrative. And it got like, I can't even explain how wild it got, but it got so crazy and nothing what I expected when I started. So
so I was going to ask, so here's a question for you then, because when I did it with my friend, we haven't finished it yet, so I do want to go back and edit it so I can post it out, because it is a really cool story. Like I was really happy with where we ended up, but we started to hit the third act where you wrap everything up. And I said to him, oh, let me go back and reread everything. And did you find when you went back, you were like, I've said this here and then never said it again in the story?
Oh, for sure. Well, yeah, kind of, because I knew what I was doing from the start, like what I was getting into. I knew specific things I had to keep track of. Like my entire folder for that is about 191 gigabytes worth of files, videos, images, like spreadsheets, so many spreadsheets.
Oh yeah, see if you do it with me, I have no plans. I am literally driven by you. So where we start, I'm not saying I don't have an overall theme. So like if you said to me it's based on, say, Mission Impossible, like I wouldn't do Mission Impossible, but I'd have a sense of the theme and the genre. But like, yeah, I have no like I've gone back and read stuff and I've gone, oh, we were starting here and actually we ended up here, and that's not where I
that's what I was keeping track of with the spreadsheets. Like every step of the way when a decision was made, I had to make sure to kind of mark it, the path on how we got there, because if I needed to call back to it, because I like callbacks when I wrap up a story. Yeah. So I had to make sure specific things and characters would be there.
I knew the big things, but there were definitely a lot of side little things that were
You miss
good.
so much. You miss so much.
But and I remember reading it going, I've mentioned this whole civilization or this whole company that's dark, like, and I've never used it at any other point, but in the first page the name is dropped and then it just never appears again, and I've just gone, how did I forget that? One
of the big things of ARGs is the incorporation of puzzles, like ciphers, that type of puzzles, different things and all of that. And I in total I did about 400 different puzzles for the whole thing, but there was so many that I didn't end up using that are still just sitting there. I'm looking at it going, that was such a great idea. This was an amazing storyline that just didn't go anywhere.
I know. I remember there was one point where I could see, I was like, yep, he's going to say this and then we're going to do this. And like, I could see it and they went completely 180 on me. And I just went, oh, well, I don't know what's happening now. Like,
legit, you would be a good DM for Dungeons and Dragons then, because that's
you know what,
I've
always thought
Dungeons and Dragons.
I feel like I need to get into that game, because my former housemate loved it, and I do think I need to.
We're going to start doing that in the cafe there. We're gonna, because there's a whole bunch of people want to learn and don't really have a group to learn, so we're gonna start doing kind of small sessions where we teach everyone kind of how to play. So yeah, I'll make sure to bring you in.
I want to be a dungeon master. I totally want to be a dungeon master.
You gotta learn the game first, and then you DM. You gotta play first.
I have no patience for that. I'm just going straight to DM.
Trust me. As somebody that did go straight to DM, play first. Trust me on this. Okay, let's wrap this part up, the main episode here, with some rapid fire questions, and then we're going to get to off the record here before we're finished up. Okay, prepare yourself. Be ready?
I'm ready.
Favorite country you visited so far?
Seoul, South Korea.
Just right off the bat. What about it?
Yep. I've never met such kindness as I did there. I would even say that I feel my level of kindness is matched. Like, I went into a convenience store and someone gave me a lollipop and said, "Thank you for visiting our country." Like, I've never met such kindness as I have there. And there's so many, and obviously I'm all into stationery and, you know, all of that sort of stuff. So like I felt very at home there. But yeah, I would say the kindness is what really just constantly brings me back there.
What is your go-to snack when you're creating?
Really depends what I'm vibing. So chocolate milk, obviously, as we've discussed. Otherwise, if I'm depending on what I'm craving, it could be chocolate, it could be, you know, chips, it could be. It's generally something that's not good for you. Let's put it that way.
Excellent.
Or lollies, or I think you call it sweets, but we call it lollies in Australia.
A book or a movie that you could watch, read over and over and over and over again.
12 Angry Men.
Ooh, solid choice. Solid. If you could speak any language fluently right now, what are you choosing?
I'd say Korean because I'm actually learning Korean.
Excellent. What is your favorite medium to work in?
Oh, that's too hard.
No.
Get it out.
It's rapid fire. Come on, just pick one off the top of your head.
I would say like film or TV, because you could do so many things. It doesn't need to be spoken. It could be in black and white. It could be shot. Like, to me, there's so much breadth in film and TV that you could do.
See, you're able to do it. It's not a problem at all. And then,
but I love all mediums.
Well, you can love them all and still choose one. I mean, I'm just saying.
Okay.
I love both my kids, but I still have a favorite. I mean. Oh, God.
You're already, I can see it in your face. You're just like, as soon as you start saying that, you're like,
no. Oh no, I'm keeping it, and then one day they're gonna find that and go, "Hey, which one was it?" And I don't know. All right. So, the penultimate question: coffee or tea?
I don't drink either.
Chocolate milk. We've discussed this.
Yes, chocolate milk.
All right.
I can take it in Seoul. I could tell you exactly where every Baskin Robbins is in Seoul.
Really?
That's how much I love it.
Wow. All right, Gill, to wrap it up, the final, most important question: where can people find you and all of your work?
So you can find all my work at gbwrites.starscapesfactory.com. That's the website. That's where you'll find all the writing and the links off to the art and all that. Social medias could be Gill_Bennet for my photography travels. So if you're interested in just that, that's there. But all the other creative stuff, writing, painting, everything else is at GillyCreates_.
I always said Gilly. Like that's where it was. It was Gilly.
No.
I am so ashamed with myself over this. I'm literally gonna be beating myself up.
Oh, don't worry. You and I had I had a story just yesterday on one of my travels where I had a run-in with my name, which I will write about because it was a first. I had a V, the letter V was involved. And that was a first.
Swedish? Anyway, talk about that later.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Gill, for sharing everything. We didn't get to cover everything. We still have so much left to talk about, but we're going to do off the record right now. So for everyone that is currently listening, don't forget to like, subscribe, follow Gill on absolutely everything. The links and everything are down below. My name is Chris Corvan. You can find me everywhere at Chris of the Void. This has been the Dripping Creativity Podcast. We're going off the record now for Patreon and the Creative Coffee Cafe community. So until next time, stay inspired, stay creative. I did that backwards. Have a good one.